Yeah. I would just say that the humility aspect is interesting. I mean, on the one hand, you can say that, well, Christians and those kind of denominations or those kind of belief systems say that, well, I'm part of a divine plan, that's why I'm here. And that might be perceived on a level of being arrogant. But on the other hand, then you have atheism where you say, well, we're human beings, but we get the capacity to explain everything by human logic and rationality. And that's the other side of the humility aspect. You know, on the one hand, if you don't perceive yourself to be part of a divine plan, and that may be not so arrogant. But on the other hand, it's up to you to instill yourself the capacity to explain everything, and maybe science will do that for you. But I don't think, you know, I think you have to put both sides of the story in place there. For the humility, when you're arguing from a humble standpoint, that atheism is better in some way than a belief system. What do you think of that?
Basically, although Chris sort of hinted at the sort of the humbler side of being able to say, I don't know, the fact that you don't feel that need to fill these gaps, that just having that is okay. I actually think that atheism and many atheists is in some ways more arrogant than religions. I mean, it takes a certain extra something to say, I don't need anyone better than me. Is almost what atheists are saying, especially some of them who are quite vocal about sort of having no God is better than having a God. I don't think that having no God is better than having no God is better than having a God. I don't think it makes more sense to me. So I don't think there's a atheism is better than religion in terms of its sort of how it sort of fits in with sort of making your own choices and things. What I do think though is that it requires a bit more thinking for yourself, which is where I think that it makes more sense in religion. Is that if you don't know something in, say, Christianity, then God tends to fill it, or that tends to be a fallback answer. Is if you know, I don't know how the world was created, but the Bible says that God created it in 7 days. Now, that might be true,
yeah,
but it doesn't really sort of doesn't answer anything.
I see what you mean. You're kind of going towards the gap theology attack, which is a very good thing to say. Because gap theologians will just simply do that. They'll focus on what they don't understand, and then say that's God. But I think for both worldviews, atheists and theists, I think it's more sensible to say that you bring your belief to view the world like a sort of a torch, looking at the evidence you see in nature, as opposed to just looking at the gaps in it and deciding what you want to put in. Because I think it's simply a way of looking at the world rather than a way of looking at what might be put into the gaps.
Yeah, sort of following on from that analogy, you're using a belief to sort of, as a torch to sort of light up what you see around you. Is that I can see that analogy. It's, if you actually picture the image in your mind, religion does give you that bright light to see things quite close to you, things quite important to you. But I mean, if you try to look any further than the light, you can't see anything at all. If you have no light at all, your eyes will eventually adjust and you'll see near enough everything. So just some analogy to think further on from that. Plus it can be quite blinding, that light. It does blind you to a lot of things. So.
Yeah, I like what you've done with that. It's quite nice.
Anything else?
But at the same time, there are limits to human comprehension. I mean, there are limits to what you can conceptualize. Would you agree with that, or do you say there are no limits?
No, I'd say there are definitely things we can't comprehend at the moment, but that's not.
But in an absolute sense, do you think there's a limit to what you can conceptualize?
I don't think I could kind of make a judgment on that, really. I mean, say say in 1,000 years we're going to be able to comprehend a lot more things than we can today. It's like we could probably comprehend a lot more than we could than, say, a prehistoric man could. So 1,000 years is probably a bit short time scale, but I think eventually the limits of comprehension will increase, and I can't say when that will end and whether there will be a point where there are things we still can't comprehend or whether we will keep going.
But in a time-independent fashion, are there any limits?
See, so that's sort of where atheists sort of draw a line, is that there's no time-independent sort of aspect of it, because there's no absolute comprehension. And because I can comprehend everything I can comprehend, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to increase that level of comprehension, try and push the limits to what I can understand. And it's human nature for that to continue throughout human evolution. However, there are other factors about that. I mean, for example, I'm not one to say that in 2 million years' time, human beings have absolute comprehension. However, I also know that in about 500 million years, the sun has blown over and human beings will wipe out the planet. So there's no time independence factor. In the time that we have to develop our comprehension, it's our sort of nature to keep pushing those limits. So yeah, I think that if there was an unending time span, if human beings would go on evolving forever, then yes, eventually there would be total comprehension. However, no one is naive enough to know that humans are going to exist forever, because there are always going to be limiting factors to how well humans can survive. I mean, no species will last forever, especially on this planet.
See, that's the thing. That's the problem we have. That's arrogance. So you're presuming that humans, at given time, will be able to explain absolutely everything. I mean, that's your problem. I presume that's what you mean by total comprehension. I mean, that mean.
The thing is, though, is that why is it arrogant? Because because most atheists, and in fact I'll probably go as far as say as all atheists, don't sort of totally comprehend, although it means to comprehend everything, it's understand everything about the physical world, just because there's nothing outside that world.
But are you presupposing there's nothing outside the physical world?
Well, atheists don't allow for anything outside the physical world.
Why would you not allow that? I mean, if you want to see everything, then you should allow the existence of everything you have no evidence for. I mean, that would be the carte blanche. I mean, that would be...
The thing is, though, is that, I mean, I can't speak for other atheists, but as a rationalist, if there's nothing to suggest it exists, then why should it exist?
Well, why discount it?
Well, I mean, because it doesn't seem to make any sense to sort of say, well, there's no evidence there's a chair there, but I'll allow the fact there's a chair and I'll walk around with it. I mean, that seems to me to be not a worthwhile exercise. So it works for that sort of...
well, it's a philosophy. I mean, it's a philosophy.
Yeah, I'm not a philosopher. So I can only work on sort of what I think, and it's like, for example, I mean, I could allow for to be 100 people at every Atheist Society event, and I could go out and buy enough tea, coffee, biscuits for 100 people every week.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, that makes no sense.
Oh, but it's not related to anything you do. I mean, it's not related to an action. Like I say, it's a philosophy, and I think you are a philosopher. Atheism is philosophy. And I think what we're talking about is philosophy, no doubt. But
yeah, I mean,
just allowing...
I think that the idea that atheists and humans they'll never be able to comprehend things that they can't sort of interact with is always something. So although you can allow for whatever you want to exist or not exist, but it doesn't seem to be something you can comprehend without interaction. And that's what I'm saying about atheists, is that we'll be able to, I think, that we can understand and explain everything that we can see, feel, touch, or that has some interaction with the physical universe. Can't say anything external to that is, well, who knows? Basically, that is the answer to that.
Okay.
Right.
Just like earlier on, you mentioned like when you first came here, you started doing some readings about atheism, secularism, rationalism. What books were there? What readings did you read? Did you make references?
When I first started to look at were a lot of books by Richard Dawkins. I read The Selfish Gene. I read parts of One Weaving the Rainbow, which is sort of a look at how the world can be peaceful even without a God. The world is peaceful in its own right without the need for something creating it, something making it peaceful. I read a few sort of essays. I wasn't reading complete works, I wasn't reading too far out by either. But in the library's got a really good selection, I'm going to go and check them out. I was reading a lot of quotes, a lot of things from a number of scientists, mainly people who I looked up to, people who I thought, I'll see what they think. But then ultimately you form your own opinions based on what fits in with how you feel, how you view the world.
Just the browse around this. I found Richard Dawkins' book really hard to read.
One thing I would say is, have you checked out the suggesting reading books posted? Because we've got a few books on there that are quite good reads. The favourite books of members of society through one member or another. Personally, I'm a big fan of Sam Harris's works, but that's not necessarily just about why there's no God. It goes into a lot. It's more an attack on religion than a book about God, so you can probably find out specifically about atheism better books than that. But everything on there is well worth a read.
What sort of books would you read about the philosophy of religion? Like, kind of not addressing the application like Sam Harris, kind of being wise, take leadership stance in the first place. It's kind of like, it's easy to just drift into any belief system, but to actually technically read the starting point and look at the philosophy of religion and the philosophy of atheism and communism. What kind of books would you recommend about how you
Well, I mean, when I say those books are more about kind of attacking the application, they do all touch, at least, if not go into some detail on philosophy. But I think, as Noel mentioned, stuff like Unweaving the Rainbow is a very good book to read, and why atheism is quite a positive thing.
The philosophy of religion course run by the Department of Philosophy actually has a public reading list, which is actually quite useful. I might remember my bag because I'll take that module, but I'll dig out to it. If not, if you give me your email address, I'll email you the reading list. Anyway, I've got a lecture to go to, so I'll have to help you leave you on.
So yeah, cheers for coming down, guys. We've got Asking Atheist tomorrow at this time, and then tonight is the problem with agnosticism, which is in here at 7 p.m. We will also be in here today and tomorrow with all our displays and people to talk to and such.